So first of all, good evening, Dubai, and good afternoon or good morning to all those who are attending this event live from different locations. We are very glad to announce the first ever Sitecore user group in Dubai, that is SUGUAE. First of all, SUGUAE would like to thank all our in-house audience for investing their time in today's event, and we expect that you will definitely get return on this investment. We feel privileged to have our sponsor, platinum sponsor, Mr. Sabin, CEO, President of Horizontal Integration, today with us. He's coming from USA for this event, and we are very privileged, feeling very privileged having Sabin with us. So here is our today's agenda. Uh, the first point is already covered. We connected with each other, and we have now more few Sitecore buddies in our contact list. Our next task is that we are going to have a session on Sitecore IoT event hubs and XDB. And Jason is connected with us right now. He is going to present on this topic. After that, we'll go for a small break. And then we will have a second session on Sitecore buckets everywhere. You ladies, you know the buckets very well. So the mic is going to present on that. And after that, we'll definitely get a chance, and we cannot leave Sabine without giving some speech for SUGUE and horizontal integration. And finally, you must be feeling hungry. Then we'll go for high tea and networking. So without taking much time, I'll first of all cover a few concepts of SUGUE. I mean, you must have questioned what is SUGUE, why SUGUE, and you have heard SUGUE. What is it? So it's a Sitecore user group for UAE, and basically what happened that in every region and every country there is a group called Sitecore user group, and it is a group where you can connect with the Sitecore people. You can discuss about the project that you are doing, any challenges that you are facing. You can share your knowledge. Okay, so the objective of SUGUE is very straightforward. It's a place where you can gossip about Sitecore, and Sitecore. And we found this user group was not existing in this region, and that's how SUGUE formed. Well, SUGUE cannot exist without these two pillars. Our platinum partner, horizontal integration, and our motivational partner, or can sponsor Sitecore. Now, well, I have one good news for you here, which is very exclusive. Sitecore is going to be our official sponsor from September. There is a Sitecore Partner Day event coming in September, where Sitecore is going to announce SUGUE as a sponsor and SUGUE as a official Sitecore user group in this region. That's a good news for us. And about our sponsor, Horizontal Integration, well, horizontal integration believes in being platinum, and that's why horizontal integration is not only SUGUE's platinum sponsor, but also Sitecore platinum partner. Horizontal integration has offices across the world, having 40 Sitecore certified developers and 9 Sitecore MVPs. It is one of the best places to work. SUGUE team. Well, SUGUE is a team of 5 passionate Sitecore professionals: Ashish, Nilesh, Pradeep, Ayman, and Ahmed. Ashish is Sitecore certified professional, having a huge experience on different CMS. Nilesh is back-to-back 2-year Sitecore MVP 2015 and 16, having a decade of industry experience. Pradeep is Sitecore certified, and he's specialist in digital marketing. Unfortunately, he is not today with us in this event. Ayman is senior Sitecore developer. He currently leads many Sitecore projects. Ahmed is Sitecore enthusiast, and currently he leads similarly many Sitecore projects. Well, this introduction was much needed since it's our first Sitecore user group event. So now we are ready for our first session on Sitecore IoT event hubs and XDB by Jason. Before I pass control to Jason, I would like to tell something about our speaker, Jason. Jason is Sitecore MVP, and he has more than 20 years of industry experience, currently associated with a company called RBA, and is going to present us on his topic. So Jason, are you there? Jason, can you hear us? I guess Jason is facing some problem. Yeah, he's back. I'm seeing him back. Hey, Jason.
Hey there, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so Jason, the house is full here, and everybody is now ready to have the presentation. So you can go
Okay,
and share your screen.
let me figure out how to do that. All right, let's see, how do I,
Yeah, you can go at left hand side. You'll find in the
there we
left of
go.
your side, you will find one green icon from where you can share your screen.
Yep, all right.
Yeah, it's fine now. We are able to see.
Okay, good deal. All right, well, welcome to the first ever Sitecore user group event in Dubai. My name is Jason Wilkerson. I'm privileged to be able to speak to y'all. So we're going to talk a little bit about XDV and how you can connect data from IoT devices through Azure and connect that to XD and start to personalize things on that data, on that telemetry data that you get from your IoT events. So to start off, what we want to talk about is what we're ultimately after as Sitecore customers, as marketers, the marketers that we support. What they're ultimately after is the customer profile, and it's we want to try to out as much as we can about that customer, so that we can deliver relevant, but at the right time. So it's not just delivering relevant content, it's delivering it at the right time, in the right place, those kind of things. So out of the box, Sitecore gives us the X profile, or the experience profile. And this is a great, this starts to give us a really good picture of our customer. We can figure out what pages they're interacting. We can see if we're tagging with profiles, we can start to get a picture of what kind of profile we think, what kind of pattern they're matching, things like that. We can find out a little bit more about the actions that they're taking on our site, whether they're hitting goals, triggering goals, coming in on campaigns, things like that. So we can really start to get a great picture of our customer this way. But really the biggest problem with the out-of-the-box stuff is it's all online. All of the data that we're gathering about our customers and all the information we know about them is all through an online channel. So what if we could go beyond web interactions, just on one of our digital channels? What if we could go beyond that and start to track offline activities? Things that they're doing just kind of out and about in the world. That's kind of what we're interested in. So this is where we get to the Internet of Things. IoT has been around for a number of years, but I'd say it's been really become a buzzword in the last 18 to 24 months or so. But everything is about IoT. It's how can we get more information from devices and things like that. So this is what kind of inspired this whole idea. This past winter, the company I work for, RBA, a bunch of us got together and we built an ice house. So in Dubai, where you guys are at, I don't think it gets cold enough for lakes to freeze over, but it's kind of a pastime here in Minnesota, is ice fishing. So a bunch of us got together and we built this ice house. But as a technology company, it wasn't good enough just to build an ice house so we could go catch fish in the wintertime. We had to connect it to the internet. So we had a little IoT, a little router there, and it was connected to a cell phone that was a Wi-Fi hotspot, and we had all.
Okay, so there is I was telling our in-house audience that Dubai is unlucky nowadays because our first, I mean, there was a flight crash before few days, and our due to some problem, our first session was not so good. No problem, but it's good to attempt than nothing.
Right.
So, Mike, we all are ready for to hear you. And before I pass control to you, I'll just make my in-house audience aware. The room is very full pack, and with the Sitecore passionate people. So before I pass control to you, I'll just introduce about you. Well, everyone knows you, but it's better to introduce because few are now in the new in the Sitecore market. So
Okay.
yeah, that's correct. Well, Mike Sabin is telling that Dubai is lucky because nobody was injured in that flight crash.
That's good. You know, I mean, I hate to hear stuff like that. I mean, it's very scary
Correct,
nowadays.
correct, correct. So, friends, Mike Reynolds is Sitecore MVP, and is Sitecore independent, I mean, consultant. And the best part about Mike is that he has started his journey in Sitecore since version 5.2. Very rare few people have hands-on experience on Sitecore 5.2, and Mike is one of them. So, Mike, thank you for being with us for in this event, and we are ready to listen you. So, here you go.
All right, let's do it. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, please.
All right, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna shut off my video just in case. Just you know, I have problems with my video and it may crash, so I just want to shut it off.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
your video.
during my last presentation, it crashed at the end, but we don't want it to crash at all. Okay. I don't know if you guys can you see my screen with the presentation?
Yes, buckets. Oh, it gone. It was there. Oh, just a minute.
You see it?
Yeah, we can see.
All right, great. All right, so yeah, I'm Mike Reynolds. I'm Sitecore MVP from the United States. I've been working on Sitecore since 2007, started on version 5.2. Today, you know, I work on 8.1. I've been there the whole time, seeing all the good stuff, and definitely have been having a lot of fun with it. But anyways, we're here to talk about buckets. You know, if you're not familiar with the feature, it's definitely something I recommend getting familiar with. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me on Twitter. Here are some hashtags you can use: Sitecore UG or SUGUAE. Or you could just reach out to me on the Sitecore Slack. If you're not on the Sitecore Slack, please hit me up and I'll invite you to it. You can also hit me directly at my Twitter handle at Mike_I_Reynolds. And you can also visit my blog, which the URL is at the bottom. You can also ask me questions there as well. All right.
Yep.
So what is an item bucket? Well, basically, it contains a structure of items, which are folders, that are called buckets. Basically, these, let's say this tree structure is determined by a quote-unquote algorithm. Basically, there's something in Sitecore that determines how to build these buckets, and it's built in a nested fashion to store millions and millions of items in theory. You can actually customize this algorithm if you want. I'm going to talk about what the out-of-the-box algorithm is and then show you an example of how to customize it. But you know, basically the slide has way too many bullet points. All right, so out of the box, it's a date time format. So basically, and pardon me if I sound a little muffled, but I'm a little sick, so I've been battling a cold for a few days. So out of the box, we have a date time format, which is basically governed by this settings in Sitecore configuration. You can change it to be whatever you want. You know, out of the box, it's year, month, and day, hour, and minutes. Basically, you could reverse that if you wanted months to be first, or you know, maybe remove days or whatever you want. Excuse me. So what's a bucket folder? Well, it's just basically an item that contains either other bucket folders or bucketable items. The leaf bucket folder should only contain bucketable items. Unfortunately, there's nothing that enforces this out of the box. I had built a customization around this. I'm not sure if I have time to show it, but I did show it in a previous presentation, and I'll give a link to that at the end. So it's a bucketable item. Basically, it's just an item that has this checkbox checked on it. Basically, this says, hey, this item can be stored in a bucket folder. If this is not checked, unfortunately, if you turn an item into a parent item into a item bucket, the actual item won't get bucketed. And I'll show you an example of that soon. All right, let's have a look. All right, let's see, Sitecore, just looking for it. Here we go. All right, you can see Sitecore on the side of the content editor. You guys all see that?
Yes, yes.
All right, great. All right, so I'm not going to talk about this yet, but I wanted to show you an example of what an out-of-the-box item bucket looks like. Basically, it's just an item that actually has a checkbox that's checked this as it is a item bucket. Right here is bucket. Basically, you don't ever want to touch this manually. Don't check this. Don't uncheck it. Leave it alone. It's especially there for Sitecore to keep track of whether this is an item bucket or not. There are things in the ribbon that can do this for you, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. But this is the date-time format I was talking about. We have our year, month, day, minutes, and then hours and then minutes. And it looks like I did this about midnight one day, but actually I think this is based on UTC, so I don't know what time I did this at, but this is basically just it. If you want to create an item bucket, you just select the item, and then there's up here under the configure tab, you have the bucket button here. You click that and you get a dialog asking whether you want to do this. I say yes, and then it does a refresh and it does its magic. But we don't see any we don't see any folders. And why is that? Well, these guys weren't bucketable. So it's very important that your items that are inside of the item that you want it to convert it into an item bucket are bucketable. So that's the way you would do that, is you would fix it like this. Let me revert this back. And say I want to make this bucketable. I'm going to save this guy. Let's do this guy. I'm not going to do all of them. I'll just do maybe 3. And if I go back up and make this into a bucket, it does its magic. And then we could see, hey, we have some folders. You're probably asking, hey, why is that not a date-time format structure? Well, I customized the way that this works, and I'm going to show you what I did. So let me just put this back to the way it was for a second. So one of the powerful features of the item buckets feature in Sitecore is that you can actually use the rules engine to convert or basically dictate how you want these bucket folders to be named and structured and things like that. So what did I do? So there's a settings object here, which is under system settings, buckets, and then it's on this item called item bucket settings. This is like an item that contains a lot of settings for the item buckets feature. And one of the cool things in here is this field here that basically lets you determine how you want those bucket folders to be created. And it uses the rules engine. And there's a lot of out-of-the-box conditions and actions that you can use to create a rule to make that happen. In this case, I created my own. So here I created a custom condition where the item that I want to convert into an item bucket has some presentation details on it. And also, basically, there's a certain amount of child items underneath it. And then I say, hey, I want it to be this thing here. So in this case, I'm basically taking the item ID of the bucket of the item that I want to be an item bucket, and I'm reversing its item ID. And I'm also obviously determining that it has 5 or more child items in it. So how does this work? So let me just show you the actual conditions and actions that made this here. So in Sitecore, I have some items here. And I have, okay, I'm just looking real quickly. I think I have, this is a condition where that will represent, a code class that will say, hey, the item has no presentation on it. I set my text up just like I would for a normal condition inside of the rules engine. And then I have a type that will govern how this is determined or ascertained. And then I have another one for n amount of children. There's nothing really magical about this. It's basically just standard rules engine stuff in here. I definitely recommend that you have a look at some blog posts out there, which I don't have links to, but there's some stuff out there that will guide you through how to create custom conditions and actions for the rules engine. It's definitely a powerful feature in Sitecore that I recommend using whenever you can, because it makes things a lot easier. And then I have my action here. All right, so let's look at the code that actually makes this work. All right, so I have my condition here. Let me just do this. Can you guys see this? Should I zoom in?
Yes.
All right, let me do this. Is that good? All right. So this is a condition. It's a when condition inside of, that comes with the rules engine. It basically all of these conditions need some kind of context for the rules. Basically, I want the context to be the bucketing rule context, which comes with the buckets feature in Sitecore. It's defined inside of sitecore.buckets.dll. I don't know the full namespace, but there's full namespace. But you can go have a look at that. All bucket rules and conditions need to use this context. Basically, they all need to, you need to override the execute method in order for it to do something. But before this runs, I think there may be another method that do other things, but I'm not going to go into those. So I overrode this guy here, and I'm basically saying, hey, does the item have any presentation? And then, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't have presentation, that means then, hey, this should resolve the true. And all I'm doing is I'm just passing this off to the has presentation pipeline, which determines whether the item has presentation details on it. And then I just return the Boolean here. Nothing complex in this class. And then I have another one for n children. Basically, this guy, which is this value property, the rules engine code will actually populate this with a value depending on what was selected inside a Sitecore for that rule. I'll just show you that. I'm just going to go back and show you that it was, I think, 5 or greater. I lost where I was. Okay. So, Sitecore will take this 5 and it will stick it in that value property right here. Now it's a string, so we're going to have to figure out whether, it's an integer or, it's greater than, it's 5 or more and things like that. So basically I'm just doing a try parse here, return it. If it's 0, then we don't do anything eventually. I do a check here in the should execute method. And then I call that from here. I basically say, hey, does the item have, 5 or more child items underneath it, which is here. I'm looking at the count of children, and that it's greater than the number that was set in value. And then for the condition, I cheated a little bit here. I basically am using, there's actually an out-of-the-box action that will use the item ID on the actual item that you convert it into a bucket. But I'm taking that, and this is probably not the best code in the world. Basically, the other action will set a string on this resolve path property of the rules context. And I'm just taking that, I'm doing a split on it because it's going to be in a path structure. I do a split on it, I do a reverse on it, then I basically join it together, return it, and then I set it back on the resolve path. I just did this for pedagogical reasons, just to show you guys that you can create your own custom actions for the buckets feature to govern how these bucket folders are created. So that's basically it. And you know, you have to obviously tie it together as items, you know, up here, which I mean down here, as I showed you here. And then when you go and you use the actual bucket button here, it will just determine that, you know, based off of the rules that you added. And then we got, you know, so I have that. You can create multiple rules and you can have them, you know, basically govern different scenarios. It's totally up to you and how you want to make it work. Now, I know that we don't have a lot of time, and I think I wanted to cover something that's kind of advanced that I haven't been able to show in other versions of this presentation. And I wanted to give you a taste of the rules engine feature because it's very powerful and a lot of people don't know about it, but I definitely would recommend exploring it if you need to do something like that, depending on whatever requirements you have for your project. But one of the cool things I want to dive into that I haven't been able to dive into is something I built, letting us know what the count is underneath the item bucket. So I basically built a feature where I can turn it off and on using a checkbox, and then it will let me know how many actual bucketed items live underneath the item bucket. So in this case, this guy has 4 items, and so on. So this guy only has 1. A lot of these bucket folders here are empty because I did a lot of experimentation and deleting and things like that for other customizations that I won't be able to get to today. But I have blogged about most of these, and I will be blogging more later on. But this guy has 1 at least somewhere. Aha. All right, so I want to jump into this real quickly. Let me shut this off. So, you know, bear in mind there's a lot of code that makes this work. I'm going to show you the actual config file first to give you an idea of the complexity of it.
Mike, can you please zoom in, especially this code?
Okay. Hold on 1 second. There we go. All right. How's that? All right. I can't see it now. Okay. I'll do my best. So you see there's a lot of stuff in here. You know, I might be being a little, I don't know, crazy. I'm thinking I'll be able to cover all this, but I'll do my best. Basically, the gist is I'm creating a custom data view in Sitecore, and a data view in Sitecore gives you the ability to change the way the content tree is displayed inside of Sitecore in the content editor. It gives you that ability, and that's basically what this code is doing, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So I'm going to go into stuff that has like minimal dependency versus things that are highly dependent on other features in Sitecore. So I built something called registry. So basically this wraps the registry that's in Sitecore. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it gives you the ability to keep track of things that are checkbox governed or other settings for the user that's logged in and things like that. Basically, this is how most of these checkboxes are, their state is kept saved within Sitecore. It's through the Sitecore registry. I created my own wrapper around it because I like to use interfaces and to make things clean so that I can, not have any tightly coupled classes anywhere. So I basically just defined, an interface for iRegistry that has these methods to save things into the Sitecore registry. You can say booleans, integers, strings, and you can, set them, get them, all that good stuff. If I jump into the code, I'm just basically delegating to the methods that come with Sitecore out of the box. So for instance, getBool will call the equivalent getBool on the registry static class that's in Sitecore.kernel under this namespace here. And I'm doing it for all these guys down here. Next thing I want to jump into, and I'm going to go a little fast because there's a lot of code to cover, And the good thing is this is being recorded. You can go back and maybe put me in slow motion and see me talk very slow, and you can see the code a little bit better. I'm going to go back to the config file just so it lets me know what I'm looking at. Commands. So let's look at this commands. So this is going to govern the checkbox that's in the ribbon. So I basically have a toggle bucketed items count command, which I have right here. I'm basically using this buckets content editor settings object, which is another object I created, which I'll get to in a second. Basically, he just keeps track of the checkbox that I added up there in the ribbon. Basically, as all commands, we have to, put some code in the execute method. And also, it's a good idea to also implement code in the query state method as well. This basically governs whether the checkbox should display or not. So if the item buckets feature is not enabled, which is determined by another object that I created, which I put inside of the settings object, which I'll get to in a second. If the item buckets feature is not enabled, we hide the checkbox. Otherwise, we determine whether we should check it or not. And this is governed by this method here, which basically we're delegating to the settings object that I will show you in a second. And then if we shouldn't check it, we just do enable, which means we can check it later. This down state means it should be checked. And then execute will be called when somebody actually performs an action on the checkbox. Of course, we want to make sure, item buckets is enabled. If it's not, let's not do anything. Then we actually toggle the state on it. And then we reload the actual item in the content editor. So I'm just going to go to this guy real quickly, go to definition. Basically, we're just setting a property on the settings object here, which is basically the reverse of what it already was. And then reload. I basically just set location like this using the share UI, the code. It basically will do a refresh of the whole content editor. So for instance, you'll see everything just like refresh like that. So let me go to the settings object. I'm just going to let me go to its. So we have two properties, is item buckets enabled, or show bucketed items count, should be showed or not. This is basically representing the checkbox. This determines whether the item buckets feature is enabled. Let's go to this guy. Here's the actual concrete class for it. It's actually using an instance of the registry that I showed you earlier, but it's also using this other class, which basically says, hey, is the item buckets feature enabled? Let me jump to that quickly. Sorry for going fast, but there's a lot of code here. Is this guy enabled? And its concrete class is basically just using out-of-the-box Sitecore functionality to figure out whether the item buckets feature is enabled. This is defined in the Sitecore buckets DLL. Even though it's using Content Search Manager, it's actually magically using something that's in the buckets DLL. I have a blog post out here that covers this. I'm not going to go too much into details on how this works. So I covered that. Let me go back to the settings real quickly just to show that. So basically, we're just saying, hey, for the property to show the bucketed items count feature, we're just returning the value that's determined by this method here. So if item buckets is not enabled, we basically just return false. Otherwise, we just make sure we have the dependencies that we need for here. Basically, we need to let me jump to that and show you what I mean. Just doing an assert here just to make sure everything is in order. If not, an exception will be thrown. And then we basically see if the checkbox is checked or not. So we get the actual bool value that's inside of the registry. And this here is a key that I think I defined in configuration. This will basically just store it inside of its lookup implementation. So it's an indexer of some sort. I forget how the registry actually saves everything, but you can index into it. And then also I could do the reverse. I can set it as well. All right, so that's the toggle. There's nothing crazy about this. This is just to govern the checkbox. And then I think I'm not going to have time to go into all of this because I think I might be running out of time and I want to have some time for questions, but I'm going to jump into the data view real quickly. I'm not going to go into all of it because it's very complex, and I wrote a blog post on this, so I definitely recommend having a look at that. So basically, in this case, I'm using the decorator pattern. If you're not familiar with the decorator pattern, it's basically a way to add or remove functionality from a class by wrapping another class with the same interface. Just give me a second. I'm actually looking for this data view code. Oh, here it is. I needed a way to actually extend data views because in Sitecore, you can't really define them. Well, they're defined under Sitecore configuration. But the problem is that it's using main util or maybe the reflection util to create an instance of it. It's an example of older code from Sitecore that doesn't use a configuration factory. And so I wanted to have the ability to use a configuration factory because I like to inject things, nested objects into other objects using Sitecore configuration. So for example, what I'm talking about is I like to inject values like this. Now, out of the box, the way these data views work, you can't inject values into an object that's defined, in configuration like this. It just won't work on data views. So I created something called an extended data view, to get around that. Basically, I just have some methods here that are almost the same signatures as those on the data views that come out of the box, but I made them like this so they're public so that I can use them because it's interface driven. And then basically, here's the concrete class for it. And this guy is basically looking for, a data view defined in configuration somewhere. That's how it's creating this instance up here. It's looking for that. And that gets passed in, from the actual subclass that defines this. So this is an abstract base class. And the subclass needs to actually define this guy here. And then this says, hey, this is the config file path I want you to find this thing in. And then we basically get it. We make sure that the actual subclass defined it. If it's not defined or we can't resolve it, we throw an exception. Otherwise, we return it. And then we basically put the instance in here. And then we're going to decorate it using these methods down here. Basically, we just delegate and calls to the actual concrete implementation. So I created one for that represents the master database view. So that would be the content editor for the master database. You can create others if you want as well, but I only created it for this because that's what we're interested in, is account within the master database. And here I'm just returning the config path. And that's the path to this guy right here. And so we have that guy. Now we have a concrete class, which is this bucketed items count data view. And if I go to that guy real quickly, basically I'm just, I'm implementing that extender interface that I talked about. I am injecting lots of other things into it that I need to use in order to determine whether, how many bucketed items there are and things like that, whether we should show things and things like that and so on. I have to define, things that are in the interface so that I can, pass it off to the other wrapper in, decorating instance that will call these methods. But the real magic happens in this get child items method, which is it's a virtual method that's defined on the actual data views that come out of the box. So this guy actually implements a data view that comes with, master data view that comes with Sitecore out of the box. So this method determines how child items show in the content editor, in the content tree. So you can basically manipulate how this is displayed here like that. That's what's going on in here. Basically, I'm just saying, hey, I want to get the child items from the base class, which is the, overall it's the The data view that comes with the buckets feature, which also goes to the data view that comes with Sitecore out of the box. If we shouldn't show the the bucketed items count, we get out. Otherwise, we manipulate the actual display of the items in the content tree by figuring out how many bucketed items there are using the content search API, which I'm not going to jump into. We return the count, and then we actually set the text value of it. So I'm going to stop right there for now because I think we're running out of time. And I want to, leave some room for questions.
Yeah, that would be good because we are running short of time.
Yeah, so I jumped through. So anyways, here's some more things to have a look at. So there's documentation out there on the document site for for Sitecore on item buckets. There's also a PDF that talks about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of blog posts out there on item buckets and customizing it and things like that. And then there are also videos out there, presentations, and I've done some presentations, maybe 3 in so far, and there are presentations done by others. Any questions?
Any question? Yeah, Krishna. Yeah. Okay. I got it. So, Mike, the question here is that can we have 2 type of bucket formatting under one parent? Like one have the date format and one has the custom?
Huh, that's interesting.
It seems interesting to me as well.
I'm going to say maybe. I mean, I've never actually tested this myself, but I'm thinking if you have 2 different rules, in the item settings, and one determines one thing and one determines the other thing, you may be able to do that. It might have actually, you know what? Yeah, because it would have to basically figure out. Let's say you have like something on a item that you want to be bucketed underneath it. If you can grab some kind of information from that item that's being bucketed underneath it, you might be able to create different bucket folders for the item bucket.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe we can try that.
Very interesting though.
Yeah, nice.
If you guys do it, blog about it.
Yeah. Definitely, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Any
question on bucket? Well, Mike, I guess either everybody knows about it or nobody understood it. Well, Mike, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I'm now going to share my screen. First of all, thank you, Mike, for being with us, and thank you for having a very deep dive into the Sitecore buckets.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah. So we are done with as per our schedule. Unfortunately, we didn't have the first session, but no problem. We'll definitely pull in Jason in our upcoming session. So for our in-house audience, I guess you have mixed feelings, but maybe if you enjoyed this session and would like to have some more session based on your topics, selected topics, if you want something to learn, or if you want something to hear from Sitecore expertise in the community, okay, you can suggest you can tell us your agenda. I mean, whatever you want to hear from Sitecore community here. Okay, write us and share whatever you want to know from Sitecore community at Dubai. We'll definitely try to have the agenda as per your convenience. And then you can connect with SUGUAE to any of this social media channel. Okay, you can join us on Facebook, of course, and you can visit sugue.net for all the events, upcoming events, and everything. And for our online audience, it's time to say goodbye for our online audience, because now we are going offline mode in order to discuss and in order to have some chit chat with our in-house audience. And stay tuned to our website www.sugue.net for further update, and have a nice weekend. So we are going off air now.
Bye.
Bye.